Do you have a child who, when they get really upset about something, say, it's not fair? So maybe they say it's not fair because their brother or sister got a toy that they wanted. Or maybe they say it's not fair that you get to be on your device after dinner, but they don't get to be on theirs. Or maybe they say it's not fair that their teacher called on someone who didn't raise their hand when they raised their hand. Often, when our kids do complain that something isn't fair, our first instinct is to tell them why something is fair. We say, your brother or sister got that toy because it was their birthday. Or we say, I get to be on my device because I have to do work. You're only playing on your device. Or we say, that teacher must have had a reason to call on them instead of you. Or here's another thing we do when our kids are complaining that things aren't fair. We say to them, you know what? Life isn't fair, and you're going to have to get used to that. In each case, we're using logic to help them feel better, to get them to see reason, because the truth is, we know that life isn't fair and we want them to be able to handle that. But as you've seen, it doesn't quite work that way. I'm going to tell you why kids get so upset and scream that things aren't fair, and why our responses, though very logical, don't actually help them handle the fact that life isn't fair. So here's what we need to start with if you want things to change. You need to know that their insistence that things are not fair is actually a symptom of something else. It's a symptom that they're feeling chaotic inside and they are feeling out of control. Something happened that made them uncomfortable. Someone else got a toy they wanted. They didn't get called on when they really wanted to be. And what makes it even worse is when it doesn't make sense to them, when they imagine things should go one way and they didn't. To them, that means chaos. Remember that kids who feel things strongly feel chaotic a lot of the time. Just like we don't know when their emotions are going to pop up, neither do they. Just like we don't know when they're going to go from 0 to 60 and get upset about something, neither do they. Just like we don't understand why they lose it when we make the wrong thing for breakfast, often they don't understand why they lose it when we make the wrong thing for breakfast either. And because they often do feel chaotic inside, because they do feel things are really unpredictable, they tend to make sense of things by creating rules and imagining things will go one way so that they can feel better. So they tell themselves, if my brother or sister got a toy, I should too. Or they say, if the rule is that you have to raise your hand, my teacher shouldn't call on someone else if they didn't raise their hand. And when things don't go that way, it rocks the order of their world. They feel out of control and they also feel frustrated and confused and disappointed. And now all these big feelings are just blowing up and they scream, it's not fair. So when I was a therapist, I used to see kids and teens. And I remember doing an intake with a parent who told me that her daughter always thought that things weren't fair. Now, when I did speak to the daughter to get a feel for what was going on, she told me as well about all of the things in her life that weren't fair. And she had a very long list. So I listened to the list of things that she was telling me. And then I said to her, why do you think things should be fair? And she said to me, well, if things aren't fair, then it doesn't make sense. So I asked her one more question and I said, well, if things don't make sense, why is that a problem? And what she said to me is, if things don't make sense, then the world is scary. And that's what's going on for most of our kids. They make these rules to help them feel safe and more in control. When it doesn't go that way, it gets really scary and they don't know how to express their fear except to say, it's not fair. So what do we do about this? Well, I'll tell you what we don't do is we don't just try to make everything fair so they're happy all the time. We also don't need to try to convince them that they need to be okay with things not being fair. What we need to do instead is to teach them how to handle the feeling of discomfort. Now, there are ways we can do this proactively so they're less likely to get upset to begin with. I teach those in a lot of my programs. It's things like teaching them to think more flexibly, teaching them to tolerate discomfort more maturely. But for right now, I want to tell you how to handle it in the moment when your child says things aren't fair. And I'm going to tell you the most important thing to do in the moment is to respect their perspective, even if you don't agree with it. So, to help you know what that looks like, I'm going to tell you two things not to do and one thing to do. The thing you don't want to do is convince them not to feel the way they feel. So you don't want to tell them why their brother or sister got a toy. You don't want to tell them why it's okay that you were on screens and they're not. You don't want to tell them that their teacher probably had a reason. Instead, here's what you do want to do. Just notice what they are going through. Saying something like, you really thought that that toy that your brother or sister got was cool. Or it sounds like you really want to be on your phone after dinner and it seems unfair that you can't be. You can even say something like, yeah, when your teacher called on that other person, that wasn't fair, huh? And that kind of stinks, doesn't it? When you can recognize that they're hurting and when you can be with them in that hurt, It actually helps them a lot more than trying to convince them why they shouldn't be hurt. Now, I want to say one more thing about what not to do. Don't expect to come up with this magical phrase where all of a sudden they'll say, "You're right, it's not fair, and that's okay." Your child, when they're hurt, is going to be in the hurt for a little while. And your goal is to not get sucked into their big feelings. Let them feel how they feel and it will pass. Support them through it and it will pass faster. What happens in the long run when you are with them in their feelings, instead of trying to convince them out of their feelings, is that they learn that they can handle discomfort. On the other hand, if you're trying to convince them out of their feelings, what they learn is I'm going to be uncomfortable. Someone's going to tell me not to feel that way. So these uncomfortable feelings are awful. We want them to know that these uncomfortable feelings are something that they can handle. And this starts with you showing them that they are something that you can handle. So again, when they say it's not fair, you really don't want to do so much work. You want to observe where they are and be there for them rather than getting sucked in with them. Then they can get themselves out of this space and they'll be able to do it faster. And then they'll be more equipped to handle a life that, let's be honest, isn't fair all the time. Now, if you want more resources for how you can sit with your child in a moment of discomfort, check out the information below this video. I have a page full of resources for you that will help you learn how to handle their discomfort so they can learn to do the same.